Hello YouTube. But I just wanted to make a video starting a new series called Exploring Every Inch of Sage. And just to give some context quickly about what this series is and why I'm doing it. Sage has been a very interesting character that has been released. Because something that became very evident very quickly is that Sage is currently the fastest character in the game, while also having like a lot of built-in defense in her kit. So she's extremely fast, has a lot of defense, and she's a very generic character in the sense of she doesn't really specialize in anything. You know, like Erica 2 specializes in lightning damage. Erica 1 specializes in like standing still to do that when dealing damage and attack skills. Sage kind of is a trick of the trade, like a master of all, in the sense that you can do pretty much any setup on her. And this was very evident for me this season when looking through the builds that people are playing on Sage, because there was quite a large amount of setups that I was able to find on pro builds. There was 4 setups that I kept seeing repeated. Just the basic chromatic shot tangle setup that everyone did, a life stacker setup using split shot, Demolisher speed setup using either Hammer of Ash or Ground Shaker, and then mana stacker using either Ring of Ice or Chromatic Shot. But on top of that, I did find some people that did like Robe and Sage, that did strength stacking ES build on Sage, and they would get up to like 5 million energy shield, which is just insane. Ring of Blades Sage, Burning Shot Ignite Sage, and even like a focus build with Sage. And with so many builds being like viable on this character, I thought it would be a good use of my time to do a lot of testing by trying to have a somewhat level playing field and taking all of these builds that I like know are really good. You know, these are builds that are getting 4 count dragon, they're killing SS21, they're doing, you know, they're doing all sorts of like really amazing things, and saying like, if we pull back the curtain a bit and we take these builds and we strip them down to a much lower gear level, how are they going to perform? To then, you know, just have a better catalog in my mind of good builds and bad builds that I can like choose from and make decisions on a league start based off the economy. So the first build that I've decided to test is going to be Ground Shaker, like Demolisher Skills, specifically Ground Shaker. So just a quick rundown on how the Demolisher Skills work, because I think not everyone might know about that. Basically, impact skills gain 1 Demolisher charge at regular intervals. And when you use your Demolisher skill, it consumes this charge and converts the skill into a stronger form. What that means for us is that we need to balance out our activation medium rhythm with the charge rate of this Demolisher skill impact rate. Like this regular intervals, we need to have this value and this value be equal, so that every time our rhythm activates our main skill, it's like the empowered variant. And the way we do this is by scaling the Demolisher's recharge speed. Now for a 0.5 rhythm, you need to have 500% Demolisher charge speed. And the way that we go about doing that is through Kismets. We have these Warhammer Kismets, which give us Demolisher charge speed. Through the quick return support, which gives us 106%. As well as through slates, because you can get 33% on every slate. And prisms, because orange prisms are able to roll this mod that gives all legendary talents, also grant you 30% Demolisher charge speed. If you do not have access to this prism, you would need to have 3 more slates. And you might need to get a bit lucky on rolling your Kismet RNG to like reach 500%. And with all of that in mind, this is the setup that I did my character. I got all the core uniques for the build. So the setup that I copied from, or like used as inspiration to start off my testing with, is going to be a setup that reached 4 count dragon. And this setup went about doing that by using Mask of Infernal Iron, Flaming Evil. This is a very standard combo to do together. Mask of Infernal Iron makes it that all of your cold and lightning damage gets converted to fire damage. And Flaming Evil makes it that if you stack Fire Rays, you can crit damage. So this setup is very good for stacking a bunch of Fire Rays, because all this Fire Rays is giving you damage, and then having all of your defense be through the conversion. On top of that, it's doing Broken Sun Ring, which is just very, very good for any Demolisher skills. Corona especially is exceptionally powerful because it works very well with your main talent well matched. It works very well with like some slate mods, such as this one. Additional damage taken by enemies in proximity, 15% additional. 30% additional is like significantly stronger than most slate mods. Most slate mods are only like 8% or 10% additional. And it works very well with those are the main two things. There's some other stuff, but I can't remember off the top of my head. And then lastly, it has a Demon's Touch. Demon's Touch is very good. It just makes it that your offhand damage gets converted into your main hand's damage. It's basically just joint forces on steroids, thanks to Conspire. Now, this guy is also using Dawnbreak and Lone Walkers. Lone Walkers is a bit outside of the budget, I think, for like a day 3, day 4 setup. And instead of Dawnbreak and then having your Omni Elixir nodes be on your ring, I think realistically on League Start you would just have an Omni Elixir instead equipped. So those are the uniques in the build that I'm using. None of them are corroded with anything that's like meaningful, except for my Omni Elixir nodes, which are double corroded. And that's just because we were low on FE, and I didn't want to spend 2k FE to buy one just for testing. Because it doesn't really matter what your damage is, because everything is relative to each other, right? I did, however, remove the blending affix from my Omni Elixir node, so that it's not relevant at all. So, yeah, core uniques, which is basically just any unique that's not more than 2k FE. Now, one thing I did do is I went through the Euro rankings, and I went through like day 1, day 2, day 3 of the Euro rankings to make sure that these items actually exist in early league. And every item that I've equipped, I could find like day 1, day 2, except for Demon's Touch, which kind of just didn't exist at all in the early league. Now, apparently people have told me that this item did exist and nobody used it in their build and was like not that expensive. But, you know, just to be safe, I did go ahead and test out Dev's Touch, Ghost Slaughters, and Magnus Laws as alternatives, because all 3 of these items did exist like day 1 of the league already. For the rest of our gear, we did go with full tier 1 gear. And, you know, just made everything full tier 1. Our character is level 90, and we do have an orange prism. So we're using an early game prism, specifically Crushing Blast for the Explode. And we do have an orange one, which is quite important because you need an orange prism to be able to roll the Demolisher Charge Restoration Speed mod. I think this might be a bit tough to get on like early into the league, but I just happened to hit it on my second try. It's just that easy. But again, there's alternatives if, you know, you can't hit it. I did not use an inverse image. I think an inverse image would make sense in this build. I just never bothered to look one up and to buy one, but they're not too expensive early in the league. Like they're expensive, but you know, they're an option, especially like day 3, day 4 that you could probably consider. For our Euro memories, we are using full level 40 Euro memories, orange Euro memories, and each one of them has 4% max fire res on them, just as a defense layer. This does not give us any damage. And then I tried rolling them for critical strike hit damage. Now, I kind of just took whatever I could on the Revive Your Memory, which also has this Elixir skill gains 4 charging progress and aura effect mod. We are not benefiting at all from this Elixir skill effect at all, because I do not have an empty active skill slot. But we are benefiting from the aura effect because I do have 2 empty passive skill slots. And then lastly, just crit damage and skill area. We do have cheap microfates, so I just went ahead and put strength on everything. Realistically, I'm not sure how cheap strength would be like early into the league, but you could definitely also just do fire res, because all your fire res can convert it into crit damage. It's just we're so starved for strength in this build that we get a lot more value from the strength than we would from the crit damage from fire res. And then for my Kismets, I have the Warhammer. You kind of need these. Not too expensive for a league, but they were fairly... Like, this is going to be a few hundred each. But this is, like, the only way you have to get your Demolisher charge speed early on. I am using full legendary pets. Specifically, I am using Kitty Express level 6, Elixir Ferris level 6, and Red Umbrella level 6. And I am using 3 times 2 mod corners. So the mod charge speed plus level, the mod charge speed plus level, and plus level in addition I'm sure cursed enemies. As well as times 2 modded slates that I fully slammed. So this is plus 1 level and mark. And then when I slammed it, I happened to hit armor pen, so this is a 3 mod slate. And this is plus 1 attack level and 4% max fire res, because again, that's just a defense layer. And when we slammed it, we got Fortitude, which is another defense layer, which is quite nice, as well as skill area. None of this is really giving damage. This essentially is just one mod that is giving us damage, but it does have a lot of built-in defense, which that is important. And our pedigree is a 1 more pedigree of joint forces on it. Just joint forces, nothing else she does anything. Also skill area, which is nice. And then for our Ground Shaker, we're using a 0.5 rhythm, and we're using level 1 Ground Shaker supports with just the tier 2 mod. I literally just bought the cheapest one, I didn't look at the roll at all. And we have Precise Auras. We have Precise Domain. I bought 21, because that was just the cheapest one. And Precise Charge Flames, which I actually dropped myself while leveling this character, so it's not even level 20 yet, it's only level 18. Same with my Scorch, it's only level 18. But I think beyond that, everything should be level 20. My Lifetime is level 18 only, but it doesn't matter. So, with all of that being out of the way, here is the baseline. So, doing a hit-based Ground Shaker build, which is the build that you see right here, I was able to reach 275 billion. This is average out over 2 minutes. And when I was doing testing with like Death's Touch, Ghost Arches, and Magnus Laws, the only option that really seemed viable for me outside of doing Demon's Touch would be going Magnus Laws, and doing Tenacity Blessing stacking. Because if you stack your Tenacity Blessings by getting it from God of Might, by getting it from a slate, as well as, you know, it's pretty cheap to get it on your belt early on. And then you, on Warlord, instead of using Fueling, you swap to... sorry, not Warlord. On Onslaught, instead of using Well Matched, you instead swap to Sacrifice. I was able to match the damage with Magnus Laws, as... I was able to have the same damage with Magnus Laws as I would with Demon's Touch. You could also just stick with Well Matched, and you would be significantly tankier. And you wouldn't do that much damage, to be honest. Death's Touch Ghost Slaughter just lost a lot of damage, it didn't feel worth it. I think Death's Touch has potential like as a super late game option, but you definitely need more gear to really get the full value out of it. When trying to equip Price's weapons, I had 650 billion. Now, I did make a note here. I made constant changes throughout, so these aren't always one-to-one comparisons. These Price's weapons was with Fire Res Kismets, and swapping from Fire Res Kismets to Strength Kismets did gain me around 20% damage. So, assuming that 20% damage continues over here, this would be probably more like 780 billion damage. Then, on top of that, I also did some testing with dot setups. I personally am not a big fan of dot builds, but dot builds are very renowned for having absurd damage scaling at the cost of just feeling bad to play with. Like, even though you have way more damage, things just take longer to die. It just feels worse. It's like entirely a bossing setup. With that being said, I tried out True Flame, which True Flame was honestly pretty decent. I feel like True Flame is a 50-50 between like a hit build and a dot build. Because essentially what True Flame does is, when an enemy is ignited, 65% of the additional bonus to dot taken from Affliction is also applied to your fire hit damage. So Affliction is a debuff, which makes it that the enemy takes 1% additional damage over time for every Affliction point. So at 100 Affliction, the enemy is taking 100% additional dot damage. So if you have a lot of Affliction effect per second, and you like scale your Affliction effect, so in other words, you have like a lot of Affliction effect and Affliction inflicted per second, in like 2 seconds of combat or 1.5 seconds of combat, you can reach 100 Affliction and just have it that 65% of this additional damage is also being applied to your hit damage. So your initial hits do less damage. You know, you're not hitting for 275 billion anymore. Let's say you're instead hitting for like 200 billion. But once you're fully ramped up, your hits are doing way more damage than this 275 billion, because the Affliction is also buffing up your hit damage. So I would say this build kind of felt like it was in like the 300 billion plus range. But once you're like fully ramped, I actually reached 380 billion. But it took like more than 6 seconds of combat to actually be fully ramped. Even though my Affliction only takes like 1.5 seconds to reach max rank. Mapping of this setup felt mostly fine. It felt very similar to mapping of the hit-based setup. I think this is an option you could definitely consider and play around with. But it is still dot build. You still do have a ramp, and it is still noticeable. Then there's also the Runa Star setup. So Runa Star, I thought, made a lot of sense of this build, because this item is notorious for being extremely powerful in a powerful way for people to get like damage cap on basically no gear. Because what it does is every 0.5 seconds, it enhances your main skill with Obliterate, which converts all of your fizz and elemental damage to erosion damage, and then inflicts a bunch of deterioration. And then it also has a line that makes it that your deterioration deals true damage every 0.33 seconds, and then it keeps incrementing up to 6 times, getting 40% additional damage every increment. This is a true dot build. This is fully a dot-based build. With just a very basic swap to it, I was able to do like 450 billion. Like, I put almost no effort into it at all. I very quickly reached over 450 billion. And like, I had like 10 different things I still wanted to fix and change about it. I think this build can easily reach 600 billion plus with like this gear level. It could probably even reach 1 trillion with this gear level. I did one map with it and I absolutely hated it. I just don't like the dot playstyle. If you only care about damage, you should play Runa Star. And I can quickly show you like what I did for the setup, but I don't think it's necessarily the best. I think the best way to build this would be to just copy what Bing 1 players do. Because Bing 1 is a Runa Star like setup. Like all the Bing 1ers, they go Runa Star. But essentially what I did is, because I'm not doing Flaming Evil anymore, I went Runa Star, I went Fool's Crown. The only reason I did Fool's Crown is I just didn't have a helmet to equip, and this is just a cheap helmet. I don't think this is the best option at all. I just wanted something cheap and quick. And I got this memory, which makes it that my bonus erosion damage is also applied to deterioration damage. This is a very, very, very powerful Euro memory. It's extremely potent. And all you want to do is you want to scale deterioration duration. So this line, additional deterioration duration, you want to get this on you want to get this on your Kismets, you want to get this on your Slates, you want to get your deterioration to be like at least 2 seconds long, but ideally even longer than that. Because it has a breakpoint at every 0.33 seconds, and it's very easy to calculate. You just multiply all of these together, basically. My setup only got to 2 increments, but I think you can very easily, like you should aim for like 4 increments on this gear level. Then lastly, the things that I tested out was Hammer of Ash. I didn't like Hammer of Ash a lot. The skill just isn't for me. When I equipped it without changing anything at all, it did about half the damage of Groundshaker. And just equipping a Scorpion Distillate for the extra projectiles I don't have Scorpion Sword on me, but Scorpion Sword base gives you extra projectiles. Just equipping that alone made it do almost as much damage as Ground Shaker. I think it was just slightly below Ground Shaker, like maybe like 15% less. And Hammer of Ash has the projectile tag, which means you can get Gale scaling with it. Gale is one of the strongest like ways of scaling in this game. It is like one of the most potent main talents in the game. So I think if you were to spec into projectile speed and get Gale in the pedigree, Hammer of Ash probably would do more damage than Ground Shaker. But I personally am not a big fan of Ground Shaker. I'm sorry, of Hammer of Ash. I just think Ground Shaker feels better to play with. And then to close off this section, I'm just gonna go do a quick map. Just so you can see the build in action. But yeah. I think my closing thoughts about the Demolisher skill speeds is, or like the Demolisher speed builds and testing it out on Sage is, it's actually a pretty fun build. I don't think it's going to be for everyone. It doesn't have as good clear, like screen-wide clear as like a Spellburst build does, or as like a Tango build does. And it does need you to stand still to get all of your damage, because you do have a line on your gear that says this basically. Deal additional attack damage after staying still, and you get 2 of these on your weapons. So essentially, if you aren't standing still, you do have like half of your damage, less than half the damage that you do than what you have like on the target army than when you're moving around. But if Chromatic Shot gets gutted or you just want to try something new out, I think this is like a decent option. And it does have a plus of being very tanky. I'm 50-50 if this might... I think this is a decent shot to be the build that I play next season, but I think it's also very likely that I just go back to Tangles. Because it is very hard to beat the feel of Tangles, because Tangles just clears better, it just feels absurdly good. But yeah, that's gonna be it from me. This is gonna be the first of hopefully many videos I'm gonna do, just testing out different builds in Sage. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you guys had a lovely video, and hopefully this was informative and you could take something away from it. I hope you all have a lovely day for the YouTube, and I'll see you all again next time. Bye-bye. Bye, YouTube. Bye-bye.